Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Welcome to Polycarp's Paradigm. I'm Eric Robinson. So excited to have you all with us today. Very special guest, my own mother, Janine Robinson, is with us today. As you all know by now, I became Catholic about 4 years ago, and my mom and dad had a conversion experience, became Catholic about a year ago. And so very excited to have her on and share with us her spiritual journey. She comes from a very interesting background. She's known by her grandchildren as Mimi, and she's had a few mystical experiences that maybe at the very end of the show or during it, we will talk about some of those. So I sometimes call her Mimi the Mystic at this point, because it's getting kind of out of hand. No, just kidding. It's really fun. And so, anyway, thanks, Mom, for being on the show.
You're welcome, Eric.
Yes. And so, let's begin. Okay. So, born, raised, what was that all about? Because I've heard a lot of things over my lifetime, but let's dig in.
Well, I was born in Miami, Florida, and I had two wonderful parents. Mm-hmm. And my earliest memory of anything religious or church was around the time, probably before I was in kindergarten or about that time. My mother taking my brother and I to the local Methodist church. And I really, really enjoyed that. My dad, however, did not go with us. We would come home and find him reading the Sunday newspaper. He never cared much for religion. He didn't like being called a sinner. So anyway.
Not many people do.
I know. So anyway, we did that for a while. And then when I was in second grade, my mother, she often said she didn't feel well, but she one day went to have her hair done, and she was talking to the hairstylist about her health issues, and the woman gave her a copy of her Christian Science book called Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. So the woman claimed that if she read this book, she could be healed. So she gave my mom a copy of the book. My mom took it home, and she claimed that she read it in one night, and the next morning she was healed.
Wow. Of
sinus and issues, migraine headaches, I think. Mm-hmm. So not long after that, we started attending, the three of us, my mom and my brother and I, started attending the Christian Science church in Miami. And without my dad. But then my dad started coming when he saw a change in my mother.
Okay.
And so, of course, I never really knew that my mother was sick or anything. So, anyway, he did like the Christian Science religion because he didn't believe he was a sinner, and they don't believe in sin. So that was a perfect fit. And then they had many other beliefs that are not held by traditional Christians, such as Jesus is not God. Jesus was the Son of God. So two distinct personalities. And Jesus was considered divine, but because he was the Son of God, but he was the way shower. Mm-hmm. Showed us how to live. They didn't really believe in a physical heaven or hell. Mostly they're known for, Christian scientists are known for not going to doctors. So luckily
because they believe that you can just prayer's enough.
Yes, praying like the early disciples did. So fortunately for me, I had all my childhood immunizations before we were Christian Scientists. That's because good. I definitely wouldn't have gotten that afterwards. And luckily, my brother and I were pretty healthy kids. So anyway, we grew up Christian Scientists, and I eventually went to the only Christian Science college in the world. It's in Southern Illinois, and the name is Principia College. And it was a small school, private school, and I loved it. I loved the smallness of it because I went to a huge high school in Miami.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of friends. They were all Christian Scientists. I hardly knew any back when I was growing up. So it was a close-knit community. However, I will say that I never quite fully grasped it or believed in it because I never understood it. It's kind of a hard religion, I think, to understand.
Yeah.
And so eventually, I moved back home after college because I couldn't find a job. I was let me back up. I was a history and religion major. So I did take a religion course concerning the early church. And I remember hearing about early church fathers. I don't know if they called them that, but such as Ignatius and Irenaeus, and also the Nicene Council, because we had to learn about that for our course. But I don't think they delved deeply into it. And maybe put their own spin on it. So, but I quickly, I forgot about that course for many, many, many years until you started investigating the Catholic Church. But anyway, after graduating college, I went back home and I worked for a couple of years as a travel agent, and I lived with my parents. And then I finally got on with Braniff Airlines as flight attendant, and I was able to move to Dallas, live by myself, and I didn't go to church then at all. Obviously, the 2 years I was living at home, I did. I went to church Sundays and Wednesday nights. And then when I left home, I just didn't do that. Maybe once in a while I would go to one in Dallas. But not much. And then I met your dad.
Yes.
Doug Robinson.
The pilot.
Yes, the pilot, in between flights. And we had just one short flight together, and that's how we met.
Well, tell us how it was a little frustrating how he asked you out, right?
Yeah, because, we didn't have much time. It was just a short turnaround, as I say, from Dallas to Chicago and back. So he asked me if I wanted to go get a frozen yogurt in Chicago, which I had never heard of that before because it was kind of a new thing. Actually, it was a rather new thing. And so we got frozen yogurt, and he said, well, I'll talk to you when we get back in Dallas. And so I said, okay. So we get back to Dallas, and after we got off the plane, he said, I would like to take you out sometime, but it won't be for possibly another month. Because I have, next weekend I have my high school reunion. And the next weekend I have, I'm going to my parents in Houston. And then the next weekend I'm going to New Orleans where I fly Navy Reserves. And I don't know if there was another weekend. I do remember those 3 weekends. So it'd be like a month before I heard from him. And I didn't take that too well. I just kind of forgot about it because I just thought, who says this? Like, who says that to someone? I want to take you out, but it'll be a month. Yeah. Anyway, so after that, he did call, and he called on a Thursday night and asked me out for Friday, and I said I was busy, and he'd have to wait another week.
Oh, playing hard to get there. Nice.
And my mother taught me well. So then we started going out, and the next year we were married. So
yeah.
Now, he'd been raised Methodist.
Yeah.
And he was pretty devoted to that for a while. But like me, when we left home, we just didn't do any religion.
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to back up and say, at least my religion, Christian Science, we were not forced, but we were supposed to read the Bible daily, along with King James Version only, and the Christian Science textbook, which explained the Bible, or what they interpreted it as. So I always look back on that time as it was wonderful because I really developed a love for the Bible.
Yeah. So, and you carry that with you to this day.
Yeah,
So
I've always loved Scripture, and started back when I was real little in Christian Science. So,
yeah.
So that's a good thing.
And Christian Science, I mean, isn't that considered like a Christian cult?
Well, they wouldn't consider that,
right.
and I was offended when someone first said that.
Right.
After I had gotten out of Christian Science, I still considered it a main religion.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
Yeah.
No.
You weren't even allowed to read Mark Twain.
No. Yeah, you couldn't read certain books, and certain books, you could read. So, and the Bible, certain parts they would outline, like you could read, but not other parts. So that part isn't great, but
the good part is they developed that habit of reading the Scriptures and valuing that. So that's really
I love
great.
that.
Yeah.
So anyway, when your dad and I got married, like I said, we didn't really give religion or any faith any thought, and just went about our lives. And then we moved to from Dallas to Evergreen, Colorado, a couple weeks after we were married, and we just had so much fun there, and skiing and newlyweds, and
living the dream.
Yeah, living the dream. And then a couple years later, we had our firstborn, Kelly, Christine, and we thought, well, now maybe we should start finding a church, because we really wanted to raise her in a faith, in a religion, and at church, just like we were raised. And so there was a Methodist church in town, in Evergreen. So we started going to Methodist church, and that's where she was christened. And we went there. I don't know if we went every Sunday, but we went. And then, May of 1982, our airline, Braniff Airlines, went it declared bankruptcy, and we both lost our jobs in one day. And that really was, that was very upsetting, to say the least. Yeah. And now we had a baby. So, your dad found a job in New Iberia, his hometown, New Iberia, Louisiana. And so we moved from Evergreen to New Iberia. And I suppose we went to the Methodist church there where he grew up. I don't remember, but I would think we did. But, and we were there only a short time, a few months, when he got hired by Northwest Airlines, and we moved to Minnesota just in time for winter.
Oh.
Yes, in the fall of 1982. And we started going to the Methodist church in Minneapolis, near our house. And we enjoyed that, and met people.
Was that different? Like, as you started going to these Methodist churches, were you like, this is a lot different than my Christian Science growing up?
Oh, yeah.
It was like, that's weird.
Yeah. I don't remember ever opening a Bible as a Methodist.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was formal. There was a pastor. Christian Scientists don't have pastors; they have readers. But I never heard the gospel message. I don't think.
Right.
So I didn't consider it that different. Some differences. And so then after we were living in Minnesota for a year and a half, we decided we couldn't take the winters and moved south. Moved to South Lake, Texas. And anyway, so we started going to the Methodist church in Grapevine, because the one in South Lake, the White Chapel one, was way too small at that time. And so started going there, and we really loved it. And except that I think it's from my background as a Christian Scientist that I started questioning, why am I listening to a preacher preach to me? Why should I believe what he's saying or believes? Like I just thought maybe it was his interpretation.
Yeah.
And why should I believe that? We're not reading a Bible. And I really just had this yearning to know the Bible. And I just want to know what God says through his word.
Yeah.
Not what some preacher was preaching. Mm-hmm. So I became dissatisfied with that. And then our friends that live in Houston, we were visiting them one day, and they said they had told us to invite us to their church. And I was just so surprised. I remember going with them and walking into the church, and as we're walking in, people are carrying Bibles. And I
wow.
thought, whoa. And then we sat down, and the pastor was explaining verse by verse, the Bible, different verses. Yeah. I guess that's called expository preaching. Mm-hmm. Sure. But I really, really like that. Mm-hmm. And so I said, when I get home to South Lake, I want to find a church like that. Well, lo and behold, our neighbor across the street was attending one called mm-hmm. Countryside Bible Church. And so we started attending there. And we really, really liked it. Now, at that time, Countryside Bible Church was very small. Very small.
Yeah.
And so, but we liked it. And I did Bible studies there. Mm-hmm. And very happy. Let's see. We had, while we were there, we had 2 more children, Amy and Eric. They were brought home from the hospital to South Lake. And we had them dedicated at the church. And then eventually we ended up moving back up north to Michigan, actually, because Dad wasn't home as much as he wanted to be, or we wanted him to be, because he was commuting.
Yeah.
And so wherever we went, though, we wanted to go to a church that taught the Bible. And the first one we went to was in Brighton, Michigan. It was a Cornerstone Evangelical Presbyterian, which is interesting because it was Presbyterian, so it had some formality, but it was very evangelical, obviously. And so it was perfect. It was a perfect church for us. And the pastor there, Dr. Alberta, he was awesome. He had been an atheist, and he had a great story. So anyway, we enjoyed that church. And then we eventually moved away from that town to another town to put our children in a Christian school, because I didn't like the public schools there. And we put them in a Christian school, but it was too far from where we had lived, so we had to find another church. Well, there was not an evangelical Presbyterian church there. We went to an evangelical free church.
More free.
Yes, yes. Always stuck with Bible evangelical churches.
Yep.
And I think we also, for a bit, attended Ogden Bible Church. Was for a bit, maybe a year. And then we moved back here to South Lake to be by Kelly. She was going to Baylor, and just to get out of the cold. And Dad's flights were longer, so he could commute. It was better for him in commuting. So we worked that out and came back, and we did not go back to Countryside Bible Church because it had a split, and it was not the same as it was when we went there earlier. And so we started looking around, and we finally found ourselves at home in a mega church, big evangelical church here in the Metroplex. And so we did that for several years. And then eventually we were becoming very dissatisfied with that. We were tired of seemed like a rock show, strobe lights, just very dramatic presentations, kind of,
yeah.
of God's word, kind of, or the messages were very dramatic, I think. And anyway, so for a time we would go. I remember this. We went to like Saturday night service there at the church, and then we'd go Sunday morning to a Colligo Baptist church.
Yeah.
Tried that for a while, and then that pastor at the Baptist church got ousted because of financial reasons. So anyway, we didn't go there anymore.
Yeah.
Eventually, we went to a church called The Village, and loved that, but it was quite a distance to go. So we didn't go there anymore. Yeah. It was awesome. It was awesome church, but it was just too much of a drive. And so we ended up at a Christian church. It's called Compass Christian. And because Dad was taking BSF there, he felt comfortable there. And we really liked the fact that they did communion every week. And they put a big emphasis also on baptism.
Yeah.
Baptisms at that church. And so we liked that too. And we were going there, and everything was fine, except for it became more showy too, even in that church. Yeah. It became with the rock music and louder, it seemed every week, and the lighting, the lights, and
gosh.
Oh my gosh. I just was yearning for something holy, something else. Here we are wanting something different again. And so we were going there when you, son, started investigating the Catholic faith. And I remember being just horrified. Thinking, oh my goodness, I can't believe this.
Another one goes astray.
Yes. So we went to, anyway, we would ask you questions, as all non-Catholics do. What about Mary? What about this? What about that? What about, everything. And, wow. And then you'd have such good answers, but we'd look everything up, and, we wanted to make sure we were getting it right. And I thought surely you wouldn't go through with it, and you did. And then you became Catholic in the spring of 2015, I believe. And so we decided, Dad and I, I didn't even know a Catholic. I knew one Catholic growing up. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't raised around Catholics, so I had mostly misconceptions about the Catholic faith. A lot of them were unfortunately, from ex-Catholics. And so I didn't know, but what I did know didn't sound good. I even wondered if they were Christians.
Yeah.
So then we decided to take the class that you took, but at a different church, a different parish, called RCIA, and I only enrolled in it to find out what they were teaching you. I want to know more about it. Not that I would ever become Catholic.
Wow.
But to learn, I wanted to learn. And so we started going in January of 2017. And every Monday night, and we had all the same questions, asked them, and there were just wonderful people there. We met other former Baptists in the class, and former Methodists, and former, there was a Muslim woman in our class. I mean, it was just amazing. And we all had questions, and we all were learning, and we'd have homework, and we questioned just about everything, and every time I would read something at home, I'd look it up. I got to know if that's in the scripture. Yep. And so, anyway, we also, at that time, and still, listened to YouTube and a radio shows about the Catholic faith, about converts. Different converts would come on and talk about their journey, such as Stephen Ray and Scott Hahn, Tim Staples, so many others. And we were given a book Surprised by Truth. It's Surprised by Truth 1, 2, and 3. Catholic converts, and a lot of them had been ministers in the Protestant faith, different faiths. And so that was very influential on us as well. And as well as those, Dr. D'Ambrosio's book, Voices of the Early Church Fathers. When you gave that to me and I started reading it, and it brought back, that's when I remembered, the early church fathers. I think I remember that from college, maybe. And I love history, so that meant a lot to me. And so all these things combined, eventually, let's see, then in March 31st, Dad and I entered the Catholic Church, became Catholic.
2018, so you were in RCA for like 15 months.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took us a while to
investigate everything.
Yes, we did our investigative thing. So we came into the church on Easter Vigil, 2018, and it's just been such a blessing. And I just finally found my way home to church. I mean, we felt at home there for the first time. We weren't looking anymore. We just we felt at home.
It's like your whole journey kind of culminated.
Yeah, it did.
It was like you kept kind of being unsettled with your Christianity, with your churches. Like there was always something in your heart that was just unsettling. Just like, this is
gotta be something deeper.
Gotta be something more. Yeah.
Gotta be something holier, something deeper. Something.
Yeah. So last year when you became Catholic, what did that feel like? You felt like completed, or like?
Oh yeah. Like I tell people, some people are familiar with the term completed Jew, Messianic Jew. Now I feel like I'm a completed Christian.
Wow.
Yeah.
So on that path, though, there was, I know there was a struggle there, and you were coming to terms with all these doctrines and these beliefs, but there was still like, Lord, I just really don't know. Like, tell us about that. Like there was a time, I think it was like in December 2017. Like, so you'd been in RCA for over almost a year. You're like, okay, so tell us that.
And I was definitely on the fence. I think Dad wanted to become Catholic way before I ever did. Yeah. And so, and we all both had our different reasons of not wanting to become Catholic. Some were issues for him and some were for me, but I was on the fence, and it was like you said, I think it was December of 17. And I just asked for a sign. I thought, you know what? All these people in the past, a lot of people have been given signs or heard a voice or something to show me that the Catholic faith was true, was the right way for me to go. Because I wasn't. There was no way I was going to join a religion, or the Catholic faith, just because my son had become Catholic. I just couldn't do that. And I had to be convinced that this was the church that Jesus Christ founded. And so we had lived in this house for about 2.5 years. And so I asked for this sign. Just show me, Lord. Just really want to be convinced. And so I was taking a shower. I think it was that next day. And I looked up in the stone in the shower wall. And I saw a outline of the Virgin Mary holding Jesus.
Wow.
And I stood there for a long time with the water running, like mesmerized at this vision, or it wasn't even a vision. I guess it was, I don't know. It was just all of a sudden there in my shower on the stone.
She's still there.
She's still there. And I go in there and I look at her and I pray. It's awesome. And I had such I couldn't tell anyone. I thought, I lost my mind? And every time I go shower, there it was again. So I eventually told Dad. Yeah. He says, you're kidding. Hey, show me. And I'm not sure. I guess he sees it now. Yeah. And I showed you.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, you see it?
Yeah.
And so.
Maybe we shrine someday.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. It's like a shrine in a shower.
If I ever redo my shower, I'm saving that one stone in there.
Yeah.
But
that
was it for me. I said, okay, I've seen my sign. That's good. I'm good with that.
Wow.
Yeah. Not many people know. I guess people know about it now.
Yeah, whoever listens.
I didn't want anyone to think I was crazy.
You're not crazy. You're just Mimi the Mystic.
Yeah.
You can't deny it now. Yeah. Okay, well, what were some of those hurdles? Like, you mentioned Dad had different hurdles than you had. What was kind of your biggest hurdles with coming in? Like, what are some things that you didn't, I don't know, what did you have to feel comfortable with before, even before that sign came?
Yeah. I think my biggest hurdle was the Pope.
Not the papacy in general, but Pope Francis in particular?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And before I was Catholic, I mean, I'd heard of John Paul II, and he seemed like a wonderful man and, just a wonderful man. And I wasn't Catholic, but I had no gripes about him. Maybe that's because I wasn't thinking of becoming Catholic. But this Pope seems to me more political than others. Yeah. And he seems more left-wing than others. Maybe because he grew up in a socialist country in South America. So some of that you bring with you, the way you're raised. Mm-hmm. I don't know. So different issues I would have with him. People there at RCIA, some of them felt the same.
So how did you finally kind of, become comfortable enough to say, I'm going to say yes to the church, even though I still maybe not feel comfortable with his bent on things or his ideology? How did you kind of overcome that discomfort to at least be like, hey, that's not going to keep me from the church?
Right. Because I decided that he's supposed to only speak about church matters, right? I mean, theology.
Well, he can speak about whatever he wants, but papal infallibility is only when he's speaking on faith and morals from the position of ex cathedra, from that chair of St. Peter as the pastor of the whole church, which is very rare that even happens. Right. But so if he says something politically, it's like, well, that's not infallible. You don't even have to agree with it.
My problem with that was that he, even though he's not speaking, he's speaking, and he is the Pope, so he carries more weight. He's very influential.
So it's hard,
So I didn't like that. I don't like that. But I got over it because I guess people said, he is human, and there have been in the past some bad popes. Not that he is one, and the church has gone on. Mm-hmm. You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right. The Holy Spirit Himself is going to guarantee that the Pope does not err in faith and morals, and we can. For 2,000 years, it's worked. So Holy Spirit's good.
So I guess I just, rationalized that. I got over it and went on.
Yeah. So, okay, so now you've been Catholic for about a year. There was another mystical experience you had, I believe it was last summer, where, well, tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, I was sitting by our pool, and I think Dad was gone, and I just sat there. I was talking, I had my feet in the pool, and I was just kind of talking to my deceased mother.
Which is probably highly offensive to our listeners that
maybe,
just heard that.
I just was, I probably did that when I wasn't Catholic.
Yeah, you weren't worshiping her. You were just praying as far as
I was just talking.
Conversation.
Well, and it's funny because, I believe she's in heaven. So I was saying, Mom, I want you to know that, I'm Catholic now. And then I kind of laughed at myself thinking, she probably knows. She's in heaven. She probably knows this. Yeah. And just wanted you to know that. And anyway, I don't know. I don't remember what else I said, but that was my main, confession to her that I wanted her to know. And I didn't hear a voice. In my spirit, I felt her say, you're on the right path, or you're on the right track, or you're right, something to that effect. It was very succinct, very It
just hit you.
Yeah, hit me.
I was like, wow, okay.
Okay. All right.
And that kind of gave you the assurance, too, like, okay, she's not in purgatory anymore or something, or
Yeah.
she's not in
And
hell.
she did not, like the Catholic faith when she was alive. So it's not like she had a bias towards it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's neat. And then, my goodness, just this past week, we had a pretty powerful Holy Week.
Yes.
And Holy Week 2019. And there was yet another Mimi the mystical experience.
Well,
I love it.
I prayed while we were there about before we had the Lord's Last Supper on Thursday.
Holy Thursday.
That night at church. I was kneeling and praying. We were praying, and I said, Lord, I want to really know that this is your body that I'm going to receive in the Eucharist, that I want to know it. I've kind of prayed this a lot, actually, but more so on that Thursday and at church. Just really want to know it, that that's you.
Because you believed it, but you were struggling, or you just wanted more concrete help with that.
Yes.
Because it's a hard teaching.
It is a hard teaching for probably most people.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look like, it looks different.
It's the eyes of faith that we just know it from because God said it. But.
So then we were walking up, and I was just bowing my head, and then I walked up, and it was Father Jason, who I looked up, and he presented the bread to me, and it was not the usual cracker. It looked like a part of a finger. It was fleshly colored. It was thick. It was like part of a finger. It looked to me. And he gave it to me, and I took it, and it was so hard to chew and swallow. It was so different than all the other times I've had Eucharist there.
Yeah.
It was not the little wafer, little cracker.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow. Thank you, God.
Yeah. Wow. So he immediately answers your prayers. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That was pretty immediate.
Yeah.
At least that time, yeah.
He doesn't always immediately answer our prayers by any means, but...
No, there's not always that. But,
yeah.
So, yeah.
And one thing I've noticed on your journey, too, is just even leading up to you becoming Catholic, you really started enjoying the stories of the saints. And
oh, yes.
What's that been
I love that. That is, of course, again, I like history.
Yes.
I like real people, history of real people. And it's just so comforting knowing their struggles and what they went through. And you think, wow, if they can go through all that in their lives, certainly I can go through what I'm going through. And, but especially the ones who are martyred, unbelievable stories. And I never knew any of this.
Right.
Like I never knew any of this. One of them that was pretty amazing to me, I found out, it just hit home because a couple months ago, read about Lazarus that had been raised from the dead.
Yeah.
And I guess it was his day that they were honoring him in the readings I read. And so I read about him. His story doesn't end at, rising from the dead. I just assumed it did, but he went on to live and be a disciple and spread the word. In fact, he had become the first bishop of Marseille, France.
Wow.
And was martyred there for his faith. And which I thought was, I can't believe I had just been in September to Marseille, France, and didn't know, and he is their patron saint, or one of their patron saints of Marseille. And I didn't know it when I was there.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was, was really interesting.
Any other saints that you feel particularly devoted to or fond of or you enjoy?
I guess because I'd heard I saw an old movie about Bernadette. Is it Bernadette?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she had an encounter with Our Lady in Lourdes, France.
Yes. I liked her story.
Mm-hmm.
I just like them all. I tell you, when I read about the ones in England in the 15 and 1600s, you definitely wouldn't want to be a Catholic, especially a priest in England in the 15 or 1600s, because they were all brutally martyred.
Wow.
Hunted down for being Catholic, for the crime of being a priest. Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I need to look into that more. I mean, I know St. Thomas More and St. John Fisher, but...
Oh, yeah. Many were martyred. And it was not a pretty... It was not. It was very, very gruesome.
And then, obviously, a devotion to the Blessed Mother. She appears in your shower. How can you not like her?
That's right.
You know? I feel like you kind of have a special fondness towards her.
Yes, I do. Yeah. I really do, because, as Christians, yes, we always believe that she gave birth to Jesus, which is God, so she's the mother of God. And so I don't understand why, as Protestants, they didn't honor that more, when Martin Luther himself, was devoted to Mary.
Yeah, his whole life.
Yes.
Yeah.
So somewhere along the centuries, that got lost, and I had no problem with Mary. Actually, that was not an issue for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And purgatory wasn't an issue for me either, because my parents were not traditional Christians, so they didn't believe a lot of what traditional Christians believe. But they were very wonderful people. My mother loved Jesus. She did. She loved him. She talked about him. And so when they passed away, especially my mother, some people said, I don't know if some people said it or I felt it, or anyway, that since she didn't believe certain things and wondered if she was in heaven. But I always, and I told your dad this, that I'm hoping, now she died in 2004, so I hoped that I knew that she would not be going to hell. And I hope that at the gates of St. Peter or whatever, at the pearly gates, somewhere in that time, she would be set straight, that she would be taught that she was right, but here's where she got certain things wrong, and that she would be finally in heaven. But I didn't know there was a name for it. I didn't know anything about purgatory. And so when I found out about purgatory, I'm like, oh, that's good, because now I know there is a place that people can go and, if they didn't get everything just right, or like someone said, maybe it was Stephen Ray, it's like the mud room. It's like the mud room where you get
washed off before you see the king. Wow, so that doctrine actually provided a lot of comfort to you and solace. That makes a lot of sense.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, well, thank you so much for sharing. Just a few more questions before we end. Just, I asked this to Dad as well and talked to him. And, we know a lot of people that are ex-Catholics. And we know a lot of Protestant brothers and sisters as well that, we're close friends with all those people. Like, we just grew up with it. Like, we're good friends with them. And obviously there's people listening that are maybe in that situation where they either have gone away from the Catholic Church, or maybe they've never even thought about exploring it. What would you say to, let's say, ex-Catholics first? How would you encourage them to maybe give the Catholic Church a second chance? Or what would you do what would you say to them to just encourage them to come back if that's something you want for them?
Well, at first, we were going through our RCIA, and when I was convinced, I kept wondering, why would people leave the Catholic Church? Like, I didn't understand if they knew what we know, what we've learned. Mm-hmm. And I've decided, and I think your dad too, decided that most of it, probably the blame goes on those years. I don't know exactly what years, but most of our friends grew up in the 50s, 60s, 70s maybe. And so the Catholic Church was not teaching students the faith. They weren't, or explaining it to them very well, for whatever reason. But our friends didn't get it. They weren't taught what we were taught at RCIA, and so that part of that blame goes on that period
on the Catholic Church.
Yes, and or maybe they didn't get it from their parents. The parents didn't really teach them the faith, or like a lot of us, we left the faith. I left my parents' faith, the Christian Science faith, and didn't go to church even for a while. And like Dad left his Methodist faith. Maybe a lot of people just leave what their parents believe in for a while.
Yeah.
And when our wonderful friends read the Bible and for the first time or were explained about the Bible, they thought, oh my goodness, I've never read a Bible as a Catholic, which that I find that hard to believe because there's so much Bible. We've done so much Bible reading in the Catholic Church and going through RCIA. And if it weren't for the Catholic Church, we wouldn't have a Bible.
Right.
So, but I wish, Dad and I both wish that everyone could go to RCIA.
And they can.
And learn,
Please.
and learn the faith. Even ones that are cradle Catholics and go to Catholic Church should definitely, if they don't know their faith, they're just going through the motions and they were raised Catholic just because they were and they're still Catholic. They should learn it because there are reasons for everything in the Catholic Church. I mean, I love that. I love there's a reason for the sign of the cross. There's a reason for everything they do. And most of it, well, all of it, I guess, is steeped in history. And so that's what I would say, that I'm sad for them. I don't blame them that they left, but I'm sad because the Protestant, well, at least the evangelical faith, it doesn't honor, as the way the Catholic Church does, the like Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Easter Vigil. I mean, it just, we used to not do anything on Good Friday. Or Thursday. I didn't even know what Holy Thursday was. Finally, we didn't do anything on Palm Sunday, and I remembered at the Presbyterian Church, at least having palms and stuff. So for a while, we were going to the Methodist Church, Vice Chapel, Methodist Church here, just on Palm Sunday, so we could feel like we honored Palm Sunday with some palm branches and, So.
And we didn't have the Eucharist.
No, yes.
My goodness.
So, I don't know that they must not have understood, the ex-Catholics understood what the Eucharist is or never really believed it.
That it is Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Otherwise, they wouldn't have left.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So, wow. So, I know one thing too, growing up, I remember our conversations whenever we would leave churches, like, we would evaluate the sermon.
Oh, yeah.
Or evaluate the worship music. And that was like the criteria of if it was a good service or not.
Yeah.
So how's that shifted for you? And I know sometimes now you even have conversations with your friends where they talk a lot about their pastor or so how is it? Yeah, because his message. So do you feel like evangelicalism has become very pastor-centric or very just...
Yes, I do.
And what's the difference between that and your Catholic experience now, and how do you reflect on the Mass versus how you would have reflected on going to a Protestant service?
Well, I do think, though, our Catholic Church, Good Shepherd, in Colleyville, is more evangelical, I think, than maybe some Catholic churches. Like yesterday on Easter Sunday, we sang a lot of songs that I knew from being evangelical, and a lot of Christian music that people are familiar with. And so it's very discipleship-oriented, evangelical-oriented. So I think they would find a lot in common there. But the difference is, there's a wonderful message given by the priest, too, as far as like delivering a message. There's no sermon series, which we like because we kind of got tired of the little sermon series.
The cutesy stuff.
Sermon series, which a lot of it was very good. I'm not saying it wasn't. It spoke to us, a lot of the messages did. But we have at the Catholic Church is purely Bible readings, and that they read, and then there's always the Old Testament and the Psalms and the Gospels are read, and then the priest talks about that and explains it, and draws on real life stories and experiences like the other pastors did. But I think there's more Bible reading and teaching and the Mass. And it's just a fuller, richer experience, I think. And it's holier. It just is. It's just more.
You have the liturgy of the Eucharist.
Yeah.
And so that's something that's astounding to me, because even if the homily's terrible or the sermon's terrible, even if the music stinks, it's like, I just got to partake of the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. Yeah. And so it's like, you might have had a great sermon. That's cool. Yeah. I had divinity in me.
Yeah.
I was just like, that's cool that you had that, and it's not like we're comparing, like we're better than you. It's just like saying, hey, maybe it's not about those things. Those things are good and supplemental. But at the end of the day, it's about that intimacy with Jesus Christ that we get to experience at the Mass.
Yeah. And from the early church, they believed in it.
And it's cool as you learn about the saints, it's like they all believed this. Like not all of the martyrs. Some martyrs even died for the belief just in the Eucharist.
Yes, because I read that a lot of them were martyred because the Romans believed they were cannibals.
Yeah, and St. Justin Martyr would say, no, we're not cannibals because it's actually his resurrected bodies. We're not just killing Jesus. We're actually getting life from him without depleting his life source. And so it's a fulfillment of John chapter 6. And all sorts of accusations that the early Christians were thrown at. So,
yes, and I just feel sad. I kind of wish that more people were open to it without their preconceived ideas of the Catholic Church or what they think they know about it or believe in it. And for the ex-Catholics, it's maybe changed for the better. The Catholic Church is the young people and obviously older people are being taught it. We have Bible studies at our church. So people have Bibles, So I just wish people could know or were open to know what we know.
When you became Catholic, did you feel, maybe you weren't directly persecuted or anything, but did you feel a sense of persecution or like a weird, like, because we are in the thick of the Bible Belt where being Catholic is kind of weird, kind of looked down upon.
Yes.
Did you feel that kind of?
Definitely. Yes, a lot. Not all the time, but and a lot of people just don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah. I know for me, like even a few years before becoming Catholic, I went to Albania, and on the way, Dad and I went to Rome, and I visited the Vatican. We had a day in Rome, and I remember thinking to myself, this is just an empty religion. So that was my whole perception. Yeah. So, and then when I became Catholic, I certainly felt just a weird sense of like I'm part of a persecuted people.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like, I don't know. Even if nobody said anything, but you get looks and you get...
But, like you told me, how many Catholics there are in the world? Compared
2 billion. Else? 62% of all Christians are Catholic. The next, about 18% are Orthodox, which have everything in common except for the Pope. So 80% of the whole world of Christianity agrees about the same things pretty much. Believes in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist and all that. The next 10%, the Anglicans, they believe a lot of the same things. And so really the Bible Belt here is in kind of the 10% category, but we're in a concentrated area. So it kind of feels like the majority, which is interesting.
And, we were there. We used to be just like that. So I don't blame anyone. I don't, I don't hold any bad feelings. I love my friends. And so.
It's just sad that there is misunderstandings.
It is, yes.
And that's something both of our journeys. Like, we asked a ton of questions and we finally got answers, and like just that willingness to explore. I guess that's kind of what we're asking our ex-Catholic friends and our other Christian friends. Yeah. It's like, hey, like, please just be open. Just explore and
look into history.
And all we can say from our experience, like for you, you felt completed. You felt, wow, I can finally rest.
Mm-hmm. Yes. No more looking.
No more shopping. No more church shopping. Yes, finally. I'm pretty sure there's like 500 different denominations in the 30-mile radius from this house. So it's kind of nice to be like, we found the home.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, any other advice or comments that you can think of that, hey, maybe someone here that's listening is not Christian at all. Maybe they're atheist. Maybe they're into weird spiritualities, or who knows, or maybe not weird, other spiritualities, or I don't know, like any advice or any.
I don't know, because I've always believed in God, whether I was a Christian Scientist or, so it's hard for me to put myself in their shoes. I have been in kind of Christian Science is kind of a lot of same with a lot of things in common with New Age the movement. So I can relate to that somewhat. I know what that's like. But I think that you just have to, same with the other Christians we were talking about, just have to have an open mind to know that there is something else besides what you can see, hear, feel. I mean, as far as like the here and now. Yeah. There is a spiritual realm. Yeah. I don't understand atheists, how they couldn't believe. So it's hard for me to speak to that.
In light of your mystical experiences, it would be hard to.
Yes. Yes. But I feel sorry for them.
Really. Yeah. Because we, it's just like we experience such life from knowing God.
And so crazy like someone said, whoever it was that said, if we're wrong, no harm, no foul. If they're wrong, that's not a good place to be. Yeah. So really, they have nothing to lose by trying Christianity. And I think another good resource for people like that would be Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. Yeah. Yes, because he was an atheist. Mm-hmm. So that would also be a good book for them to read.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mom. I love you.
I love you.
Yes, I'm so glad.
Congratulations on your new venture.
Oh, yes, Polycarp's Paradigm. Here we come. If y'all enjoyed that show, if you believe in what I'm doing here at Polycarp's Paradigm, trying to spread the faith once for all, delivered to the saints to the ends of the earth. So small goal, pretty big goal. But yeah, if you believe in the work we're doing, or I'm doing, then please consider supporting me at Patreon. You can just look it up, Polycarp's Paradigm, on patreon.com. And also, I have a book, Thoughts of a Changed Mind. And that's a little bit about my story and spiritual insights I've gained over the years. And if you choose to support me at $20 a month, then I'll send you a free copy of that. But you can choose to support in whatever amount. And either way, please keep me in your prayers. And we got big dreams for Polycarp's Paradigm. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you all. And I will make sure to put some resources in the show notes, some of those links. And so thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.